Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Joanna Zhang. She's an award-winning founder of the Operation Genius and the creator of the world's first fractional VA service. Recently honored with the 2024 Stevie International Business Award for Innovation and named 2025 Company of the Year in Australia, Joanna has revolutionized how entrepreneurs scale by providing elite operational support without the overhead. Joanna brings more than just systems. She infuses her works with soul-aligned wisdom and conscious leadership born from her own journey of spiritual awakening. Get ready to learn how to marry operational precision with heart-centered strategy to create a business that is both sustainable and deeply aligned. Joanna, thank you so much and welcome to the conversation.
Wow, I'm so glad. Wonderful time together with you, Lisa, and audience.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump into it and talk about why it's so important, the things that you're doing today with virtual assistants, why today is so important.
Okay. I think as we discussed at the very beginning when we connected, you did mention 5 years ago, even VA, this term, people feel like a bit weird or maybe not familiar, right? Or rejected. But after, I think, COVID, it actually helped this remote type of work enormously. So I think people are familiar with the VA, this term now, which is wonderful. However, I think the fractional VA service model I created was actually when I worked with the VA 8 years ago. So at that time, I actually needed a lot of help for my own business. I'm not DIY style. I need a lot of help, but I don't have a budget to hire full time, part time, a group of people. And then I had to figure out a solution. And at the side, I have a lot of challenges, hurdles working with the VAs, with the delegation of communication or managing all those sort of things. But I kept it through and dedicated and figured out a model that support my business that I can customize a team within my budget. And I thought, why don't I share with others? And that whole journey made me realize the importance for the entrepreneur realize that there are solutions there, right? Even though now we started to work with VA and then given the AI started to emerge with the business growing, we often still have a gaps in the team or business. We need help here and there, but we're not always ready to hire full-time, part-time. So this model is perfectly fitting into all those gaps situations. It's like we call it teething problem. So when we're growing, we have those teething problems, and then to feed into that, to smooth it out, to accelerate growth. So yeah, then I thought I was grateful that I went through that hurdle and challenges because without it, I wouldn't be able to really dedicate through to figure out a solution. And now sharing with others and help others.
And so this solution was born out of personal need, what you were experiencing growing and scaling a business of your own. Are you a serial entrepreneur?
No, I'm not. I'm just talking about this particular business, the Operations Genius.
You were talking about growing a business and having the need. So with Operational Genius, many VA models really are trying to make that a full-time commitment, right, at sort of fractional costs. But your model is actually different. Will you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the traditional model of VA field is the full-time or part-time field, right? And think about from business point of view, I can totally understand because that's really good for the VA companies because they find a talent, they punch it, hands off, money in, right? So from business perspective, it is easier model for business to operate, and then they can help other business to find the talent. It's like a talent hunt, right?
Mhm.
However, in saying that, because nowadays we often feel in those situations that before from a one person to start until we're really ready to hire a group of full-time and part-time, there are always gaps. So our model is really like a plug and play team and filling those gaps. I'll give you an example. Traditionally, if someone says, I have a 10 hours of budget, right, a week, for example, and I need a website done, I need accounts done, I need my design done. So totally three different skills. Normally you need to find a three staff, right, team members to under you to manage, and you have to be dedicated, committed for certain hours for them each week or month, whatever, to get things done. But often we will find we don't have a 40 hours a week for them to do all those tasks, right? So with the traditional model, it's hard for those kind of model to help business or with that need. But with our model, we can. So we can pick and choose those three skills, customize the team, and that's your budget. We will get things done based on the priority. So that's the difference.
That is so liberating for people who are growing and scaling. And it may even be for a team inside of a large organization that just has the gaps. And the gaps might be, I mean, there's lots of scenarios that I can create where the gaps exist. Somebody might be on FMLA and they're only working, they're a full-time employee, but they're only able to work because of their medical condition 20 to 24 hours a week. The job still requires 40. And so this is a really interesting way to be able to support an employee and still get things done while creatively solving problems in a way that we couldn't have a number of years ago.
Yeah, that's so true. And then I think that's how I actually got recognized as the world first fractional VA service. And then I realized, oh, I was the only one who is doing it. Oh, at least the very early one, the first one doing it. It's not easy, to be honest, for us. We provide a lot of flexibility for others. It gives a lot of challenges for ourselves too.
So let's talk a little bit about the business challenges that you're running into running a business in a way that is highly customer centric, because you really understand that those gaps, those small needs make a difference to entrepreneurs and businesses. So what are some of those challenges that you've faced and overcome?
Okay. Externally, I think, as I mentioned, because our model provide all this flexibility,
Yeah.
which means we need to bearing all the design on the structure, infrastructure, and the flows of support, make sure the team management, recording system, everything is aligned. So because it's something totally new, no one has ever done it before. So I have to figure out a way, trial and error, and to figure it out. And by saying that, while we're actually providing flexibility for others, it's actually very fluctuated for ourselves from a cash flow, sustainability, everything like that. But by saying that, I think fortunate enough, I may kept it through. And I didn't know why at the time, but later on find out my soul mission is so powerful. I had a soul awakening about 4 years ago, and I find out my soul mission is so powerful. It is around the teamwork and leadership, and also my mission for this lifetime is to help teams and the members to grow. And then I suddenly realized, even though that was extremely hard, I still kept it through because there's some inner drive and motivation kept me through, right? And by talking about it externally, it's about providing flexibility for us to create a fluctuation for ourselves. Internally, that was my personal growth and transformation through the leadership side. At the very beginning, I didn't know I was a leader. I was, before my soul awakening, leadership always show up in my world. I didn't make any link with it. But somehow I always play with a group of people or work with a group of people. I didn't know why, but now I know. And at that time, especially in that scenario, I worked with a group of VAs. I started from a title leader by passing simple instruction, very rigid, like I'm a leader, I'm a founder, you got to listen to me. That stage. One to serving leader, I started to understand people's perspective. I need to provide space and room for them to grow. But at the same token, my boundary got stepped, right? So after soul awakening, I realized everything's about a balancing act. So it's a balance between the compassion and the boundary. And after I practiced self-love more and more, I started to become a spiritual leader, which is balancing the compassion and the boundary. I'm still practicing in that field. It
Mhm.
is my personal journey of overcome all those challenges with the leadership transformation internally. Well, I believe challenges are always there, either externally or internally. But I wanted to share one thing that I used to very rejecting the challenges because I feel like, oh, something not went through, and probably I thought I'm not good enough, or why couldn't I resolve it? I was in their mindset before, but after soul awakening, I realized, oh, challenges is something. One thing could be our karma, but at the same token, depends on how we look at it. If we were like a victim mindset, feel like why this thing happening to me, we can never really grow out of it, right? So we just stay in the state and the feeling stuck. However, now I understand every single challenge, there's a lesson behind. If we change the angle to look at the lesson, then we can learn, we can certainly grow out of it. And I wanted to share one sentence from my spiritual mentor. She said, true self love is actually to experience self value. that make me aha, because at the time I thought, oh, it's not a proof. I don't need to prove anything because I already have value myself. But it's to experience self-value, I had to open to all the challenges, right? If I don't allow myself to experience unknown, how can I experience all the things? Since then, I started to embrace all the challenges and treat it as really growth opportunities. And my life just shifts. Yeah.
So that there's so much in there. So let's talk a little bit about self-love is actually self-value. And as females, we oftentimes have those moments of self-doubt, those things, and we can label that and call it imposter syndrome, which I really, really, really abhor, mostly because it really, really, really does exist. And I hate talking about it because I feel like that gives it power. But to your point, to get to self-value, right, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to do the things that might be uncomfortable, whether you're talking about, looking at the challenges, shifting your perspective so that it is not necessarily a challenge, but it's an opportunity. It's the opportunity to learn. As we face challenges, I'm sure that somewhere along the line, Joanna, there was something that didn't go the way that you wanted it to go. Will you tell us a story about a challenge that may have been bigger than you wanted it to be, but what the final outcome was?
Hmm. Okay. Before I go there, I just quickly touch on the imposter syndrome because I used to totally have that too. And I found out for me, the reason was sometimes the things was too easy. And I felt like, oh, is that it? Did I do it? Is that really me? Am I really? That kind of doubts, right? So I realized sometimes the life throws some life lesson or challenges to us. It is for us to cherish the process and to really learn, to really validate our own value, like experience our own value, and then have a true confidence in the core that I am that. I can do it, right? Like those kind of feeling. So yeah, I just touched on that. About the story I want to share was like when I actually set up my business, I actually tried so hard. Um, not too hard. This hard, how to say? Did a lot of things, right? And then I achieved something too, but I somehow didn't feel fulfilled. There's one thing internally. Externally, my business always felt there's something stuck there. Couldn't go to the stage I wanted to, and I didn't realize. And I learned so many things as well, like a strategy, like go to different coaching courses, but I still couldn't break through. And then I didn't know why. And after my soul awakening, we had a session with my spiritual mentor. She actually mentioned one thing to me. She actually that day asked me a question. She said, Joanna, why do you do your business? Well, her very first answer from super level or logical is a good business model, right? I used to do business as a transaction because, I think I need to be logical. I think about people as a dollar sign. Oh my God. I used to be like that. But I understand now people can feel it when I'm in that state, right?
Yeah.
And then she asked me again, why exactly? Think again, why do you do this exactly? I think a bit deep layer, and then I thought, I can help a lot of people, I'm sure. Because he helped me, certainly, right? And she wasn't satisfied. She asked me again, think again, why do you do a business? And at that time, I totally ran out of all the answers. My brain just stopped. And I couldn't think of anything. And just one sentence split out of my mouth. Is because of unconditional love. Tears just dropped suddenly. And she said, there you go. Your soul knows the answer. Since then, I realized there was a big blockage, was the energy blockage. Because when I talk about it, I can see the emotional because I think my soul knows why I did something physically, mentally, ego. They protect me going to another way. That's why there's a misalignment. And since then, I started to address my intention. I start to look at every single client as a soul. I look at the problem as my own problem. I care about them as solving their problem. I forgot, I stopped thinking about business totally. When I talk to others, no business, but just caring about it. And the magic just happened. Things just naturally evolve because people feel we truly care. And then my business just transformed. I think that was my biggest blockage in the business journey. Yeah.
That thank you for sharing and going into all of that. And I feel how deeply you feel for people, for souls, and what it is that you're solving. And while you're doing it through a business, it is a very human, very personal experience that you're sharing because you are and the VAs and the services that you provide are enabling others to achieve their purpose. And that's really powerful. And I think sometimes we get lost in the transactional element of business. I sell a widget, I sell a service. This happens, money comes in, woohoo. But that's not actually the woohoo. The woohoo for an entrepreneur really is something much deeper. What they are trying, if they are purpose driven, they are trying to help people in some way, shape, or form. So doing that, gaining for themselves more often than not. Freedom to spend time how they want to spend time, freedom to spend money how they want to spend money, but it's really not about money first. It's about freedom. And with this business model, with the soul awakening that you've experienced, you are clearly seeing internal and external stimuli that everybody experiences and that we mostly don't think about or talk about. And thank you for sharing all of that with us, because for everybody listening, we are all on a journey. We have external factors that are in competition with internal drives, and there's all sorts of language we can use around this. I can make it very business like, but it is understanding how we're holding ourselves back. And
Mm.
through a service that Joanna's providing, she is giving you the opportunity to take control of time and invest it in a way that's meaningful for the business without having to do everything for yourself. It's a huge, huge shift. Joanna, do you have a story that you can tell us about a client and a journey that you've been on with them that has had, that just holds a place in your heart where you've just helped them transform and grow and scale and do all of the things that you're really on the path to do?
Well, there's so many. I don't know where I should start. I think maybe I'll give you a couple of examples because those are the exact. Well, and when you're mentioning about competition, right? So I just think about this point. A lot of time we put in ourselves in a stage of feel exhausted and anxiety, have the anxiety, and I wanted to go ahead of the game is because we start to compare ourselves with others. But I truly believe that we all have unique value as a soul, right? Same as our business. And an example that I actually work with many people in the same field, like in the outsourcing field, because I believe we're helping different clients with different problems. But saying that, we are providing this customized team support to business, to owners to grow. Apparently, we can only help a group of people with a certain problem, right? So I'll give you examples on those areas where we can add the most value. So, for example, we had a client that she actually very interesting. I actually had a podcast interview with her at the time. As I mentioned, I didn't think about any business. And after our podcast, she asked, What is your business model work?" Exactly. And then she said, she was a superwoman. She's a lawyer by trade, and she actually started running a couple of podcasts at the same time. She said, I was actually planning to hire a few VAs, but I'm holding on because thinking about hiring and training and all this sort of thing just kept me stuck. But I'm really exhausted until a certain point I can't do anymore by myself, right? And then she says, it sounds like your model is exactly what I'm looking for because I need something for podcast, something for my legal website, and something for my down the track CRM management, whatever it is. So there you go. That sense, in her, it's just case study, right? So in her situation, that she actually in a position that she already overload, and she's so capable. She's beautiful, I have to say. A lot of solopreneurs you can find, a lot of them are self-sufficient, DIY style. So that's why they can do a lot of things very well. They think, oh, instead of passing to someone, myself is much quicker, better. Like, yeah. And then certain point they will be exhausted and overwhelmed, and that's the time that they start to think to lay off to others. So those are one of the scenarios we can actually provide a team based on the needs and customize and to support whatever it is. That's one example. Another example can be, I had a client, she actually is an accountant, and she actually hired a few bookkeepers from Australia. At that time, her team members was helping her with social media management and some designs. They're accountants. That's not their specialties, right? And by saying that, she said, I'm paying higher cost and then let them doing something they're not really interested in or maybe not good at, like it's just, she said, I didn't have a choice at the time. But now with this model, I have a choice, right? I can start to maximize the outcome of the current resources to really let everyone play in their strength. And from cost and budgeting point of view, I have a better position to structure it well. So those are two typical examples. What I mean is that either solopreneur, they overwhelmed, or the team, a B2B service with a team, but they have a gap. Yeah, then our model is perfect for them. However, when someone is growing into a certain stage and they're ready to hire time part time, I will highly recommend that one because they'll be more cost effective. It's just from when they start and to the point, the gaps, we can fill in all those things. Yeah.
Joanna, that's great. Thank you for really giving us a look at a couple of use cases where this is really, really advantageous to a business owner. If people are interested in what you've been talking about and they want to learn more, where do they find the Operations Genius?
So the best way is just find us from LinkedIn and just put my name, Joanna Zhang, and I'd love to connect every one of you. And no matter what you want to discuss about, either the spiritual or operations or any structures or support or business growth, whatever it is, love to connect and collaborate.
Fantastic. The link to Joanna's LinkedIn profile will be in the show notes. So, Joanna, today, thank you so much for this conversation where we've talked about a business that was born out of a personal need that you had as you were trying to develop your business model and understanding that entrepreneurs need help, but we don't always need full-time help. And that those gaps that exist are painful, especially when we ourselves. And it's important that in this model, that was the original fractional virtual assistant model, that you came up with a way for gaps to be filled by your team by picking and choosing specific skill sets and not necessarily an individual filling the need for your clients, but making sure that then having a detailed model so that the needs were actually met. And you shared with us through your soul awakening how you were able to really see and understand the difference of what was happening in the external world and what that meant to you internally, and how that cleared the path for you to understand how to grow your business, but also that your purpose was simply to help other people. It's really, really easy. It is not about, obviously, it's a business, you're earning money. But the mission and the purpose behind it is helping your balance and helping your clients understand their boundaries and their compassion and how all of these pieces fit together so that their businesses can grow. You shared with us two unique ideas of when this service means the most: a solopreneur who does everything and really shouldn't, and in a growing team where you have highly skilled, trained people in a specific discipline and you have them filling those gaps that are below their skills, below their capabilities, and ultimately you're paying more for that service than the service is worth because you're using the people that you have on hand but distracting them from where they actually drive value to your business. It is a fabulous conversation and pain points that I know almost everybody has felt at some point in time. Audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate.